The elephant in the room is the outstanding balance. It's, a good sum of money that is owed to the city. There is support for it. I'd like to move it forward regardless. And the city can always turn it down later, just so that we don't stall the process.
And I understand the argument sometimes that he's paying it on the heels of another event and things of that nature. Cause I've heard that when I've talked to, just people or you read online.
So a lot of it's perception to the public. They feel like every time the new fair is coming up, there's this balance.
When do the first bills come out?
So I don't know the exact date they went out, but the first
the
bills
month.
have invoice dates of November.
I'm just going to leave it at that point right now, not January. We went from $50,000, and maybe this was an accident, to $25,000. I think it's wrong for the taxpayers of the city to float paying the people who work there for the benefit of a for-profit institution. It's 90 days in advance. This is supposed to be taken care of. If a person doesn't pay their water bill for 2 months, this city cuts them off. We're talking about $157,000 that the residents have forked up. Our event policy says one thing, we break it each and every time. I believe you should have walked in with a check today. The last time it was $30,000. Now it's 500% above that. It's 100. Now talk to me about the addition that I don't know about.
Mr. Bast had an opportunity to engage the circus that's actually at the Florida State Fair right now. And he was able to secure that. It's the largest operating circus in the state of Florida currently. I know there's some camels. I know there's some exotic animals.
Just out of curiosity, does Peter show up?
I just think the circus is a wonderful thing, and I would love to see the circus in the city. I think it'd be great to see trapeze and all that kind of great stuff.
I think it's ridiculous that we're even entertaining this. It's ridiculous that time and time again, we sit here and we approve or temporarily approve, which we know is going to pass when it goes to the commission. We're the same people sitting here. Let's not fool anybody. The fact that he hasn't paid, and this happens every single time. No, I'm not in agreement with the circus. I hope PETA does come here. I hope they fill the streets, because we have said time and time again, we don't want any animals. And I, for one, don't want any animals here. And I hope that they do come out in droves. I don't think a circus is a wonderful thing personally. I think it's disgusting that these animals who are not meant to be in a circus and do this are used for this purpose. I don't care whether they're exotic animals or not. They are God's creation, and they were not meant to be put in a circus. The public can't even be here because this is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Public who may have wanted to be here can't because it's not our normal hours. And we're going to sit here and approve something like this at the 11th hour and not even give the public a chance to even be here. This is all wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
He needs to pay this bill. I'd say no, do not approve this circus. We have a big enough circus in the city. We don't need no more.
We need to control our city manager with hiding stuff from the commissioners. I don't know why Cale feels it upon himself to make a special accommodation for somebody that owes our city this much money. We have to pay to park on this property if we want to go to his fair, and he's not paying his bill. Does any of this make sense? And I do believe that at the next commissioners meeting, March 5th, Cale needs to be on that agenda for a review of his job.
CRA staff should be investigated. Somebody's given directives to violate CRA policy and ultimately city ordinances. Roughly $158,000 owed to the city. Approving this shows that you do not have the best financial interests of the city in mind, and you're willing to put taxpayer money at stake for the benefit of an out-of-town for-profit business. I request the following board members to abstain from voting due to their conflict of interest in receiving campaign contributions from either the applicant or the representative and giving political endorsements to the applicants represented before you.
Why do we in Margate have to allow this fair all the time? Why is it that Margate is the one that allows breaking our codes and rules for special people?
And I have a hard time believing that this wasn't spoken about before they came in here, considering it's on their website.
We have to pay for these things in advance. Why should somebody from the outside be allowed to do this?
So all you people out there that want to put it out there and allow people to put it out there, spread rumors about me, I enjoy it. The more publicity I get, the more name recognition, it's fine with me. Keep it going. There was a comment made about God's animals. I'm sure we all have pets up here. We put them on a leash? You let them run free? There's been insinuation that I've been under investigation, blah, 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 this and that. I just want to let all of you know sitting up here, It's not just me, it's the whole city of Margate.
You
Take it
truly
back to the
sell out
original.
your city when you play this game.
What?
You do. You're selling out your city. It's the money.
And I'm excited about a circus. I've always loved the circus. Good day, everyone. This is a special CRA meeting. The date is February 24th, 2025. The time is 2:00. Please call the meeting to, please call the roll.
Board Member Schwartz,
Here.
Board Member Serio,
Here.
Board Member Simone,
Here.
Vice Chair Rosano,
Here.
Chair Caggiano.
Present. Please stand for a moment of silence and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. David, if you would start us off here on item 1A.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Tolsis, CRA attorney. Item 1A is discussion and possible action related to the resolution of the Margate Community Redevelopment Agency approving the temporary use agreement between the Margate Community Redevelopment Agency and Hildebrand Amusement Rides, Inc. for the use of the Margate Community Redevelopment Agency property for the Margate Spring Fling, providing for an effective date. This resolution is before you for your consideration.
What's the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve? I would-
Second? Second?
I had some things, some conditions possibly that I wanted to
Well,
discuss.
that's absolutely fine. Since everyone else is quiet, you go first.
Always in support of the fair. I have no problem with it. Got a couple questions. I'm sure we'll hear from the attorney regarding, I guess there was an addition.
You know what? That's, why don't we have the attorney come up to the podium and answer any questions that's necessary?
Sure. So
Thank you, Josh.
I'll leave that as my last question, though.
Okay.
The elephant in the room is the outstanding balance that we have. I know there might have been some indiscrepancies in terms of the final amount, but it's, a good sum of money that is owed to the city. I'd like to, because it still has to be approved by the city ultimately, so for timing, if there is support for it, I'd like to move it forward regardless, and the city can always turn it down later, just so that we don't stall the process.
Mhm.
But I think the city needs to be made whole on it before the fair starts. And then something to consider in the future, maybe not for this fair, but in future fairs. I think there needs to be some type of bond or payment made in advance. Because I don't know how many fairs we're gonna have left, and when it's finally over, I don't wanna have to chase down for an outstanding balance.
I like
So
the,
those
I
are
like the
my
bond
concerns.
idea.
And then if you could elaborate on the circus piece that was added.
Which I don't know.
I just found out. this
So,
afternoon.
so good afternoon, everybody. Joshua Rydell, 111 Southwest 6th Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on behalf of Hildebrand Amusement. A couple just quick things. I'm going to pass these out because this is in fact a late addition. This is a site plan, but I want to address the change in it and kind of what has developed over the past month. So I do understand obviously the timeliness argument of calling this meeting as well as the late application. I think it's important to note that Mr. Bass is conducting business in the city for over a decade in terms of spring fairs and winter fairs and things of that nature. So if I may approach the dais, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I've
It's
just
more like
asked,
20 years at least.
He's- you know,
Oh, okay, because
This is a modified site plan. I'd like to direct Mr. Curtis as the director of the CRA just to amend to our application. This is a second site plan. So this site plan is a little different and I'll get into why. To start with I don't want to call it the elephant in the room. There's not going to be any elephants, but let me, pardon the pun. Let me address the elephant in the room is that Mr. Bass has always paid his bill with the city of Margate. This has been a development. And when I say development, years ago, he was able to have private security. It's developed more in terms of using your police department, paying for everything associated with your police department, your fire department, and your emergency services. For example, and again, it's not any other concern. Mr. Bass was going to pay probably 80% of that bill this week while we're actually still going over a little bit. So for example, just to educate you, the city submits invoicing to me. We have our own invoicing. So for example, our individual, and I just want to educate you on the process of why sometimes there's a little more here. Any officer, and I see Mr. Stransky here from your police department. Any officer obviously gets logged in through your police department because they're billing for it. There's also login sheets through my client. We correlate those. So those, 95% of the time they're on point. Maybe it's a discrepancy on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but that's a significant amount of invoicing for these officers. So for example, and again, this is for education, not any other issue. We were originally provided a bill of $90,000 about a month ago. There was some additional with the fire department. Some of the time I've talked to your city manager about that, that we're just kind of just trying to coordinate with both departments. The bill's at about 157. Mr. Bass is going to pay, I believe, 120,000 this week while we're going over that remaining balance of. Good. Well, he could pay the whole thing and we can collate because sometimes it doesn't always add up. He's committed to paying the city. He always pays the city. If you want to make a condition before we come before the city commission, God willing, we're allowed to move forward in a capacity today. You can make a condition that that balance is paid before we even appear before the city commission, let alone open, and we'll accommodate that condition. To
Josh,
hopefully
when
answer.
was the most recent bill that was submitted to you received, so that we get an idea of what kind of time frame we're looking at?
We received a first batch of bills in January.
And have you received anything in February? Any other additional bills in
Yes,
February?
we
Okay,
we are in touch with staff, and the reality is, as opposed to paying it in piecemeal, and to your city manager's credit, Mr. Curtis stays in touch with me about it. Hey, we got this chunk, we got this chunk, we got that chunk. He does a good job. As soon as we get it, we're going to pay it. And I understand the argument sometimes that he's paying it on the heels of another event and things of that nature. Because I've heard that when I've talked to, just people or you read online, he's committed to paying the money and he's going to pay it. And if there's a condition that he pays it, if you want a bond posted, I think Mr. Bass has always come before you honestly, with integrity and said, if you want something to pay it. I mean, last event we did in November, there was a condition about with the homeless children. He would like to do that again. It was a great afternoon. He said that he was able to give these kids, so he's committed to doing that. On the money side, if you want me to finish up on the money side and answer any questions.
On the money side, in fairness, he has always paid. And he's been a great member of our community. And if we're sending bills starting, 2 months after the fair's over and then trickling them in, I get why, a lot of it's perception to the public. They feel like every time the new fair is coming up, there's this balance, but in reality, in fairness, he does come twice a year. We bill him several months later. And then through the process of applying for the next event, a month or two out, now there's this balance.
We've paid
So I'm
over.
just trying to, sitting up here, I'm just looking at the public perception and protecting our money. And then in fairness to Mr. Bass, that he does always pay.
Can I interrupt you for a second, just for a question of the city manager, who is the executive director of the CRA? When do the first bills go out?
So I don't know the exact date they went out, but the first
the
bills
month.
have invoice dates of November.
Josh, November. I'm just going to leave it at that point right now, not January.
Listen, I don't want to, Arlene, I appreciate that. I don't want to get in an argument with when there's a date on an invoice to when I receive it. So I'm the representative of Mr. Best. When we get bills, they get paid. I don't want to, I can tell you this, I have good dialogue with your director, your city manager. I can tell you the exact date I got the first submission from Margate, but I don't want to make it like that. I think there's an effort consolidated through me speaking with Mr. Curtis to figure out the best streamlined way to get it all together, and we'll get it paid. I understand the perception. I think Board Member Ashari, you said it correctly. It's this perception that there's all this money owed. It's not. We pay it, and we're going to pay it, and we're going to pay it. He's going to be paid in full before this weekend.
I'm comfortable with that, but I wanted to be on the record, letting the public know that I am paying attention and that, despite what people might write online, I know some of the city commissioners pretty well, and I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't pass the fair on final approval if it isn't caught up by then.
I suggest on behalf of my client, make that we can make that a condition. We're not going to appear before the city commission in your other capacity without being in full payment with the city of Margate.
I have no problem with that condition. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I motion to approve. I'll add the condition that the balance is paid in full prior to commission approval.
Can we add that, David?
Is this anticipated to be on a commission agenda?
This would go on commission agenda for March 5th.
Right, so you'd want to have the approval of the CRA included in the motion would be that the approval is subject to the balance owed to the city being paid prior to the city commission meeting of March, what'd you say, 5th?
So if it's the 5th, then we'll say by the 4th.
Arlene, I see your button's lit. I'll get to you in just.
No,
No
so,
problem.
so no later than March 4th. Okay, no later than March 4th.
Yes. Arlene, you wanted to say something?
Absolutely. I will go on the record as saying, I think Harlan Bass is a great guy. I think his wife is lovely. I love sausage and peppers. However, However, we went from a 3-day setup to a 7-day setup to a 10-day setup. We went from $50,000. And maybe this was an accident, to $25,000. And I'm curious as to why. And most importantly, I think it's wrong for the taxpayers of the city to float paying the people who work there for the benefit of a for-profit institution. I think it's wrong that the people who pay our taxes have done that for this, because we don't do that for anything else. I don't think any other city would do that. I was under the impression that when we talked about a bond in advance, that we had done that. Apparently not. I also have taken the time to read that says 90 days in advance. This is supposed to be taken care of. Spring break is decided the year before by the school system. This year, it's going to start a week before school is out. I have a problem with the hours. If a person doesn't pay their water bill for 2 months, this city cuts them off. We're talking about $157,000 that the residents have forked up, regardless of when the bill was. I just have a real problem with that. Our event policy says one thing, we break it each and every time. And so for this reason, I can't approve this, because the truth is that I believe you should have walked in with a check today. And if there were an issue between this and that amount, the last time it was $30,000. Now it's 500% above that. It's 150. I think that's wrong. And I don't think the residents of Margate should be floating money to pay for somebody else for that length of time. I don't think other cities would do that. And if they would, good for them. Now talk to me about the addition that I don't know about.
The alternate site plan that was set before all of you for your approval, the Florida State Fair just concluded. Mr. Bast had an opportunity to engage the circus that's actually at the Florida State Fair right now. And this is candidly why we were a little delayed in the submission with a late change before you on a different site plan. He was able to secure that. He's able to secure it one way or the other, meaning that we would like to move forward on the original site plan unless there's a consensus by this board to approve a secondary site plan. The secondary site plan is exactly that. It's the largest operating circus in the state of Florida currently. And it's, probably 70-80% Circus Soleil type features. There are some animals. There's some exotic animals.
Which we've precluded each time from
There's-
having.
Now, well, the intent is not any animal, what we've done before, but this is circus-based, exotic animals. Mr. Bass can come up and speak a little more clearly about that. I know there's some camels. I know there's some exotic animals. All that have been essentially shown and active in the state of Florida. So this is a circus that has done some of the biggest state fairs that we have.
Just out of curiosity, does Peter show up?
Uh,
I take,
Well,
yes.
Board Member Schwartz, I've never represented this particular circus entity. I did a lot of research before looking into it. I'm happy to share the YouTube. I mean, it's a pretty nice circus. It's top of the line, but it's up to this board to make a determination if you'd like to have a portion of a circus. So really what it is we be under site plan B, which we're asking for your approval. It's a split site plan. So there would still be the spring fling and the other half would be the circus.
I would love the circus in the city. We haven't had a
me
circus
too.
in the city. We haven't had a circus. Please don't yell. We haven't had a circus in the city since like my daughter was 4 or 5 years old and I took her to it. And I just think the circus is a wonderful thing and I would love to see the circus in the city.
And this would also be just so you're aware, it's not 2 events. It's all one event under the umbrella.
Thank you. Arlene, are you still lit? Okay,
no,
then
oh,
we
I'll
have,
wait.
David. Yeah,
okay, you
just,
want,
just under your city code, it's the city commission's decision as to whether or not to allow for any display to the public for entertainment, amusement, or promotion, any live animal on any property owned by the city, the CRA, or any other city property. So that would be part of the city commission's consideration of a temporary use permit.
absolutely.
But to the extent that the CRA owns the property, you could include that as a condition if you move forward with this revised site plan to require that city commission approval for that display prior to any final approval. Thank you.
That's perfect. I think it'd be great to see trapeze and all that kind of great stuff. Circus is just awesome stuff.
Me too. My daughter would love it.
Okay. All right, so. Who wants to make a motion to accept the secondary form? Does anyone want to make a motion to accept the secondary form, the secondary site plan?
Do we need to, or was it part of the presentation, part of the item already?
Well, I would think that in light of the fact that Mr. Rydell came up to the dais just now, presented it, that.
To be safe?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
So-
Sure, then I would amend it to adopt this site plan submitted before us today.
Second? Looking for a second? I'll second it.
So just for the record, the motion would reflect the revised site plan
Mhm.
in addition to the balance owed to the city being paid no later than March 4th. In addition to the city commission approving the display of live animals on the property.
What?
Is that the motion?
Yes.
Director
Yes.
Sarah? Okay.
Board Member Simone?
I think it's ridiculous that we're even entertaining this today, to be honest with you. I couldn't agree with Board Member Schwartz anymore. She hit the nail on the head with all of her points. It's ridiculous that time and time again, we sit here and we approve or temporarily approve, which we know is going to pass when it goes to the commission. We're the same people sitting here. Let's not fool anybody. Josh, you're a great attorney, but I won't go any further. You know, the fact that he hasn't paid, you know, and this happens every single time. And we're gracious enough to say, okay, one time. We're gracious enough to say, okay, a second time. And here it is a third time. Why are we waiting? I don't believe any of this nonsense that because of accounting and we didn't get the bill and it has to go with this department and that department. I don't believe any of that. I'm sorry. I think it's all a bunch of just lip service to pass this. This site plan, I'm sorry, as beautiful as it looks, it is so small, even with my glasses, I can't read one thing on here. So to hand me this at the 11th hour and say this is our new site plan, we shouldn't even entertain a new site plan today. You've had plenty of time. If Mr. Bass wanted or was even thinking about having this circus, then he could have contacted the people before their event was over, and it could have been mentioned to us prior to this that we are thinking. But this is all at the 11th hour. There has been plenty of time to take care of the logistics of having a circus. No, I'm not in agreement with the circus. I hope PETA does come here. I hope they fill the streets, because we have said time and time again, we don't want any animals. And I, for one, don't want any animals here. And I hope that they do come out in droves. I don't think a circus is a wonderful thing personally. I think it's disgusting that these animals who are not meant to be in a circus and do this are used for this purpose. I don't care whether they're exotic animals or not. They are God's creation, and they were not meant to be put in a circus. So I don't even know why we're even entertaining any of this here today. The application should have been in long time ago. The public can't even be here because this is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Public who may have wanted to be here can't because it's not our normal hours. And we're going to sit here and approve something like this at the 11th hour and not even give the public a chance to even be here to do it. This is all wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
All right, yeah, you need to have public comment before you take any action on the motion.
Margate resident. I want to, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Bass for doing what he did for the homeless during the winter time. But to me, that's just a little gesture compared to having us as the taxpayers front him the $150-something thousand that is owed to our city. Our city. I am a taxpayer to Margate. It is our city, nobody else's city. He needs to pay it. He knew he was coming here today So how come he did not bring his checkbook and pay it and get a written check right then and there? He knew this was coming up. He knew all of this was going to happen. And then Mr. Rydell wants to stand up here and say about he did the homeless. Yes, he did the homeless, and I'm grateful for it. Did he give the person the right ticket? He didn't give it to the right person. It should have gone to the person that's in control of the homeless people and not a commissioner. But that's besides the point. He needs to pay this bill. I'd say no, do not approve this circus. I'm sorry, or this fair, whatever he wants to call it. We have a big enough circus in the city. We don't need no more.
First of all, I would just like to know if Mr. Rydell, if the city of Coconut Creek funded the butterfly thing he had this past weekend. Bet not. Number one. Number two, I believe that I got up here and spoke the beginning of the year, and I said to all the commissioners in Margate that we need to control our city manager with hiding stuff from the commissioners. And here we are once again. And I believe it's $208,000 what he owes us. And maybe you're not aware. If you need me to break it down, I will. It's $113,000 for the police. It's $45,000 for the fire. And it's $50,000 for the city fee that he's supposed to give you for having the fair. So if you need to check that, just make sure that you got the 50,000, because it's a total of 208,000 that he owes the city, not 157. So double check your math. And I think that needs to be paid before March 4th. I think it needs to be paid, and I think the vote needs to be no. So I don't know why Cale feels it upon himself to make a special accommodation for somebody that owes our city this much money. He's not doing his job in collecting money. I would like to know how these bills are sent to Mr. Bass. Are they sent snail mail? Are they sent email? Because if they're sent email, there's no reason why Mr. Rydell should say, if you put a date on it of November, I can't tell you when I got it. Because if he put a date of November on it and he got an email, he got it in November. Us residents are not really that stupid. So stop, please, making us out to be stupid. So they charge our residents, us residents, to park on our property, our city property. We have to pay to park on this property if we want to go to his fair, and he's not paying his bill. Does any of this make sense? Or can we use our brain? Please use it. And I do believe that at the next commissioners meeting, March 5th, Cale needs to be on that agenda for a review of his job. And you guys need to think hard about what's going on with our city manager. I think we need a new city manager in our city. Our money is not being spent properly, and it's not being collected properly, evidently. Thank you.
Margate resident, great job trying to shut out the public from this meeting by holding at 2 p.m. and not advertising Zoom public comment on the agenda in an attempt to suppress our First Amendment. Let's start with everything that is wrong about this, since there's nothing right about it. 11 days to set up when the city ordinance only allows 3 days. I'm not sure who you think you are to endorse violating city ordinances. Allowing this makes your accessories to violating the city ordinance. Now, if you don't care about city ordinances, as displayed countless times before, at least follow your own CRA event policy, which is in this item's backup. To begin with, use of the CRA property shall be restricted to organizations that are Margate-based. Look up the words shall and restricted in a dictionary if you don't know what those two words mean. The policy limits carnivals to 14 days or 2 weekends. This request is for 3 weekends and 17 days. Cleanup is requested for 8 days when the city ordinance only allows 3 days. Additionally, this request includes a circus, and the CRA event policy allows a circus to operate for a maximum 4 days. A sponsored organization may hold an event twice a year on CRA property, but shall be restricted to holding only one event of the same type each year, and you admitted to violating that today. Organizations interested in sponsoring an event on CRA property must make the request at least 90 days in advance, and per city ordinance, the temporary use permit applicant shall submit application to the Development Service Department at least 90 days prior to the event. This application was only notarized February 17th, 7 days ago. This does not give the city staff enough time to review site plans and prepare to ensure the public health, safety, and welfare of the event. Again, you'll be accessories to facilitating an unsafe event. CRA staff should be investigated as to how this application and others from the same applicant get processed and sent to the board for approval when it meets none of the event policy requirements. A second grader can decipher Fort Lauderdale from Margate on an application. The only explanation for this malfeasance is that it's intentional and somebody's given directives to violate CRA policy and ultimately city ordinances. Whose idea is it to continually push this through to financially benefit an out-of-town business over benefiting a local charity or nonprofit, as was done in the past and within policy? All I can see is that you make every effort to benefit this applicant who continuously does not follow the rules. And with roughly $158,000 owed to the city, approving this shows that you do not have the best financial interests of the city in mind, and you're willing to put taxpayer money at stake for the benefit of an out-of-town for-profit business. I request the following board members to abstain from voting due to their conflict of interest in receiving campaign contributions from either the applicant or the representative and given political endorsements to the applicants represented before you. The CRA Chair Caggiano, Vice Chair Arcerio, Board Member Rosano and Schwartz, and at least one board member has had a personal attorney-client relationship with this applicant's representative, plus a PAC that shares the same mailing address as one of the board members has received thousands of dollars in contributions by both the applicant and their representative. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Margate resident. I want to start with a positive opinion. This fair is a lot of fun for some of our residents. Mr. Bass is a very nice man. For the last fair, he gave a lot of free tickets to the homeless or less fortunate kids. Some of those tickets were given to Mayor Schwartz the day of the children's Christmas party, and she gave them to Margie, who gave them to the kids that were there. There were other free tickets given by Mr. Bass, but they were not given to those children. Besides the money owed, which I find very troublesome and unacceptable, what I don't like is that this fair keeps getting more and more allowances from some commissioners, like days to run it, times to stay open, and how why are with this happening only a week before? Doesn't our rule say that they have to request this 90 days in advance? Section 324C specifically addresses these issues, and every time they come in from the CRA or commissioners, they keep getting days and times extended. Why do we in Margate have to allow this fair all the time? Why can't they go to Coconut Creek? I'm sure they have connections there, or Coral Springs or Tamarack. Why is it that Margate is the one that allows breaking our codes and rules for special people? Why do we residents of Margate have to see our city go to such, and I hate to say it, such a dump? Thank you.
Hi, Nina Culver, Margate resident. I know I haven't seen some of you in a while. It was nice to see Josh. Hi. So my questions aren't so much for the fair as they are for the city as it pertains to having special events. So in order to rent anything in the city, whether it's parents struggling to give their kids a birthday party and can't really afford where the kids want to go to either Chuck E. Cheese or something like that, they want to rent a pavilion. To rent a pavilion, you have to pay for it before you can get the permit. If an organization or any private entity, if they want to rent the sportsplex, they get asked how many people are going. Then the fire department and the police department decides what they need. They hand them a bill that has to be paid before the event. So what I'm not understanding is how we're remotely in a spot where they can accrue this debt. If the regular residents that don't have the money to pay for the minor fees have to do it up front, and if it gets canceled because of weather, there's no refund policy. There's no rescheduling that the city is going to foot. But we're going to do this, and they're just out of their money. It's unfair. It's a bit ridiculous, and I have a hard time believing that this wasn't spoken about before they came in here, considering it's on their website, the fair dates and where it's going to be located and what it's going to have. That stinks of special interests. And it's not something that should be allowed. If anything at all, this should be tabled until that bill is paid. Not a question of if we should do it, or you should approve it, or put it on through the next phase. It should be tabled until the bill is paid. The residents deserve at least that, to show them that they need as much as your special interests do. And this is not a dig on Josh. It is not a dig on the fair. The city is allowing this to happen, and it's completely unfair. It also negatively affects the businesses that are on the southwest corner due to the parking and having to pay for it. And then they don't understand what they're paying for, and they end up ultimately not going into those businesses. The times of the fair, they have to be shorter. I know I have 5 seconds left and so much more to say, but they have to be shorter. I live a mile from it. For the times to go that long is ridiculous. There are people right behind there that have new babies that they deserve to be able to put their kids to sleep before 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Jonathan, can you wait? Paul, I'm gonna ask you something.
I didn't.
What do you say?
He said he had to go.
Take a break from Margate resident. I'm going to try not to repeat what everybody else said, but I agree with what they said. What would happen if, let's say, the commission didn't get paid for 3, 4 months? What would you do? What would happen if somebody from Ace Plaza didn't pay their rent for 5, 6 months? You know that it wouldn't be let go. What would happen if we didn't pay our water bill? When we knew it was coming, we received the bill, we got a notice letting us know that the bill needed to be paid. What would happen? We wouldn't be able to continue to have a store in Ace or have water or have any of these things. It's an advantage to some of the kids or the people that do come. But as was said, the Margate residents, our tax money is going to this. I know that in our community, if somebody is not paying their maintenance, we have a management company, but guess what? We have a president that has a backup system that makes sure that we know who didn't pay on time, and nobody lets it go for months and months and months. I don't think that we should do this. We should allow this to happen, because not paying that kind of money, that money could be used for a lot of other things. The homeless, the kids, I mean, in so many things, that we could just let this money be passed over and not do anything about it and think it's okay. It's not okay. And like it was said, we have to pay for these things in advance. Why should somebody from the outside be allowed to do this? And I can't see that anybody thinks that this is okay. This is okay for the residents, the taxpayers, the people that are homeless because they can't afford to pay their bills. Maybe if they had an extra 6 months, they wouldn't be homeless. We really need to look at this from a resident's point of view.
Just wanted to echo a couple things that were said. Josh, have you ever had any outstanding debt previously prior, not this one, prior to that, that you had, that your client hasn't paid?
No, the city of Margate's always been made whole. I think, in the past 5 years, Mr. Bass has paid, your police department over almost $1 million. And I will just say this, Mayor, just to be clear, it's not, the city taxpayers of Margate are not floating any of this. This is
I
money.
understand it.
There's no floating of the money. It's going to the general revenue fund, and the money for the other young lady that spoke, the $50,000 fee for the carnival in November was paid according to how we, we're on a timetable to pay it.
And I just want to say, Lauren and Nina, I heard what you guys were saying. I don't know if there's a policy in place that says it has to be paid prior to, but I think Board Member Osorio brought up some great points about coming up with a bond moving forward. So I get all that. Now, to the other comments that were made. Donna, you insinuated that the passes were given to the wrong person. I'm assuming you think they gave them to me. I never received any homeless people's passes. Just to sum that up with everybody. Never got them. Never received them. So all you people out there that want to put it out there and allow people to put it out there, spread rumors about me, I enjoy it. The more publicity I get, the more name recognition, it's fine with me. Keep it going. Let's get our facts straight here. Tracy, you came up, you went after the city manager. Bad move. Bad move. He's been the best thing that happened in this city. The best thing. I understand you might not like some things that he does or he doesn't do for some of you guys. The best thing that ever happened to the city, and I've been here through 4 city managers, and I can tell you that. The city's never been looking so good. Jonathan, I don't know why you left, but insinuating that I got a campaign donation from Mr. Best, I don't think that's true. And Jonathan, I wanted to address something else you were saying. People up here on the board, there was a comment made about God's animals. I'm sure we all have pets up here. Do we put them on a leash? Do you let them run free? The last thing I want to talk about is me personally. There's been insinuation that I've been under investigation, blah, 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 this and that. I just want to let all of you know sitting up here, it's not just me, it's the whole city of Margate. Okay? I don't know. Oh, and the last thing I'm going to say to Anthony, everybody knows we don't have a love relationship. I mentioned this meeting last week because I knew he was probably going to get blamed for it. What else do you want us to do? This was an emergency meeting. If not, the times wouldn't have worked. In order to get all 5 of us up here, it's not that easy. Some of us work, some of us are out during the day. So for him to call this meeting, I give him some props for it.
I know I was gonna get my butt kicked for it.
I know you were. That's why I tried to bring it up, and I did last meeting to let everybody know this meeting is going to happen. I appreciate you guys coming. I've heard everything you say. We'll see how the vote goes, but you know what? It is what it is. Just get your facts straight. That's all. I never got the tickets, Donna. Never got them. Thank you.
Board Member Schwartz?
So am I just speaking on the addition of the circus, or am I speaking on all of it? I'm asking the city attorney because
Currently, the motion is to approve the revised plan, which includes the circus, as well as the payment no later than March 4th, and subject to the approval of the city commission for the animal display.
all right, so I'm going to bring back up then the same thing that I saw in the contract that is different from the September 30th one to this one now, and that has to do with the payment to the city. In one, it's 50,000, and another, it's 25,000, regardless of the fact that apparently I just learned it hadn't been paid yet either.
No, that's been paid. It's payment to the CRA. So
Okay.
former rent payments to the CRA for use of the property has been 50,000.
That was paid.
And isn't the 50,000 because the winter fair is bigger, the bigger fair? No, it's for the
The
use of
50,000
the
is
property.
because one day somebody said to me, how much would you like? And I threw out the number 50,000 to be exact, because at that time, the people who had us in court were getting a lot more. But they're not the same. So how can we in any way, shape or form agree to something that's changed? And I shouldn't be the one telling it to us.
That is a proposal from the applicant.
They're
They're proposing to reduce the rent.
In fairness, though, as the executive director, if I didn't read this, would any of them know?
I believe it is in the backup.
That's the only way they would know.
It's in
Should
the
that not have
text
been
file.
pointed out? In all due respect, if I didn't take the time to read and print the 2 different ones from month to month, would you expect that should we not in anything we're doing point out what has changed so that it doesn't look like we accidentally missed it? I read the contract. I don't know if anybody else did. I brought it up. I'm not sure anybody else would. Isn't that a failing of your office? Because we should know that that changed after the fact. They're voting on it, and I clearly can count. But should we not know that it went from 50 to 25,000 without a good reason, other than the fact that that's what it says?
Yeah, I understand your point. That could have been highlighted in the text file, but we try to put as much information in there for you all to make an educated decision on these items.
But Kale, changing the money is definitely important. Regardless of whether it's a good amount or a small amount, it's half the amount. And I've truthfully always disagreed with us charging for parking on our property, especially when there was a year that the vice chair and I walked around and handed $500 to every single person in both plazas to make up for the fact that they didn't have as much parking as they had before. So whatever we got that time, we gave it away. I've always had a problem with the hours, still have a problem with the hours. I have a problem with the fact that it's a whole week before kids are out of school, which means that if it goes on till 11, some of these kids are in class at 7 in the morning. I'm going to guess they probably get up at 5 a.m. I have a problem with that. I clearly understand it's going to pass. I know I can ask to table it. Probably will be a second for that. But I know it's not. In fact, I know that that won't pass either. But there are just some things that are a problem because it's not like this date is arbitrary. The school calendar comes out in August. We know in August that there's going to be spring break in March. So there is time to have put this in advance rather than make a special meeting for it. And if we're going to do a special meeting for this, then I would expect we're going to have a special meeting for every single human being who has a problem with a timetable or something that the CRA or the city is going to do, because what you do for one, you should do for all. So I think we need to look at some of these procedures. And as I said, this is not personal. I happen to like Mr. Bass, but it is a problem when things like when you break rules all the time for just one particular entity, and we don't do it for others. So first of all, what are we going to do about the money? Because whether I vote for it or not, it's going to pass, and you need to address that right now.
The fair won't open unless the money's paid.
No, I don't
We
mean
expect
that
the money
money.
to be paid.
I mean the
And that's
50
the
as
city.
opposed to the
That's a
25.
city thing.
No, I
That-
don't mean that. I
the-
mean the
the-
50 as
The
opposed to
25 versus 50, that's up to this board's discretion. If you don't want to, rent the property for 25 and you want to make it something different, that's what you propose here.
Well, that's a change in the policy that I don't want to do. And I
So
would-
there's no policy amount that is set for renting that property. That is something that is proposed and negotiated and accepted by this board.
That's not true. That's an amount I came up with when we were still in the litigation, and it has been the amount, unless it's changed, it's always been there, because I'm the one who was asked. I'm the one who came up and threw out the number 50,000. Hasn't changed since until just now. So I guess somebody needs to explain to me why it changed now. Also, the idea of having a bond was brought up before. Truthfully, I thought we all agreed on it, because I believe board member Arcerio brought it up before. I thought everybody thought it was a great idea. Apparently, we need to know when we need to vote for the great idea to actually move forward, or we wouldn't even have this discussion.
If I might,
Turn on your mic, put your mic on.
Could the commission add that as a condition at the commission meeting, that a bond be put up?
so you have two different issues. You have one, which is today before the Community Redevelopment Agency. You have your special event policy. And in your special event policy, it says that the CRA reserves a right by majority to extend the times of approved events for good cause. Fees associated with an extended event may be waived or adjusted based on good cause. So it's within your authority as a CRA board to adjust that fee that's associated with your own temporary use agreement. Subsequent to that, it would go to City Commission. City Commission has the responsibility, fiduciary responsibility, to make sure that whatever services are being provided are paid for by the entity that's using the property. And that's where this, police and fire and that total amount, I believe, of about 157 is sitting, and that's what's paid. In addition to that, whatever other conditions the City Commission wants to put on the temporary
Sure.
use permit, they can.
So right now, assuming this passes, it's going to go to the city commission, and they're going to approve it. The condition is that before the commission approves it, that he has to be paid in full.
Right, well,
Right,
you're
but
adding
could
that as
at the time of that commission meeting, could the commission say, yeah, we approve the fair, but before it opens, we need a bond for
That's
X
what
amount
he's
of.
saying. That's
Yeah.
where it
Right,
belongs.
so I,
That's what he's
yeah,
saying.
I have no
Yes.
problem putting
And-
that on.
and-
I'll do that at the commission
Right.
meeting.
And in addition, the proposed agreement that's before you has a $25,000 payment.
That needs to be changed
So
here.
it's up to the CRA board as far as what we
Correct.
want to do with that.
The bond is
fee.
for later, the amount is for now. So I'm going to amend it that it goes back to the $50,000. Because I see no reason for it not to.
Need a second on that? Second.
You have an amendment to the original motion to provide for $50,000 rental payment to.
And I can just simply vote on the amendment having nothing to do with the rest of it, correct? Good.
Okay, so, then please. Oh, we still have, I'm sorry.
This-
Joanne's is lit before you.
I had a question about the circus. It does say here in the event policy that the circus, if one is approved, shall only operate for a maximum of 4 days in length. So how are we addressing that?
So if I might, so as I stated,
We can change it.
your policy does provide for the ability of the CRA board to adjust dates and fees as it deems appropriate.
I think
That
it's
would
for a good
be-
cause.
But ultimately, it's the city commission's decision as to whether or not to approve that type of display if it includes animals.
So I always interpreted that length of time as being the length of time for the entire fair, not for separate things inside the fair.
Well,
So now I'm being told that it's for any amount of time, anything having to do with the fair, not just the length of the fair, but if they sell alcohol, that's under, we can change that to so many days. If it's a circus, we can change that to so many days. If it's for homeless children to come, we could change that to a certain amount of days. So this is all subject. So why do we even have a CRA event policy if everything is left up to the commission to change it?
Now what?
Joanne, are you still going? Okay. Vice Chair?
David, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just for the rental of the property.
Mhm.
So the fees, that's the city commission.
Correct. But you are entitled as a CRA board to charge rent for the use of your property.
Correct, I got that. Just if you're watching the meeting, it looks as if the two of you aren't getting your way with the carnival, so now you want to raise him from 25 to 50,000. I'm just saying that.
That's what it was, Tommy. That's what it was in
I mean,
September.
I remember we changed it. I remember that. I'm just saying as an onlooker looking in, is it fair? I don't know.
No, I just want, regardless, if there were circus or no circus, when I read this, I wanted to understand why we reduced the fee. For what purpose? And there's nothing here to explain to me for what purpose that fee was reduced. Period. I would have asked that no matter who it was. It was always 50,000 and it became 25 and nobody told me why. Because there is absolutely nothing here to tell me other than the dates it intends to be paid. Why? Why do you reduce the rent on something that's going to cause, whether good, bad, or indifferent, tremendous amount of traffic and everything else? And why would we do this without an explanation? And I don't have one. All I have is dates of when 15,000 will be paid on one day and 10 on the other, but it doesn't tell me why. It's just, quite frankly, it looks like something put in there with the hope that no one would catch it because nobody was told about it. Simple as that.
All right, so we have the amendment to vote on.
The amount.
The amendment is your amendment for changing it from 25 to 50, correct?
Correct.
And if the petitioner wants to say something, this would be a good time.
Okay.
Josh, hold on.
If I may, I'll be very clear, and my client wants me to.
Okay.
It's a different
I
event.
wasn't gonna force you to speak
I
on
understand.
this.
It's a different event. It's a smaller event. Mr. Bast, obviously, 3-4 years ago when we were here, there's a number of complaints of issues with the kids or an incident or things of that nature. He has gone through extraordinary measures, not just with the city of Margate, but with his own police force, with his own security system, with a huge amount of additional security measures that he's done. And in this, the only site plan is using the east side of the road, not the west side of the road. So we weren't trying to hide the ball or do anything, but costs for security, costs to the city, it's a different pot that's being paid, has gone up exponentially. So we put in for $25,000. The $50,000 came through Member Schwartz when you were in litigation with the developer. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. None of you are definitely drawing a blank on that name.
Third
They're forgettable,
You
so it
can
doesn't
forget
matter.
them.
New Urban.
But there was
Third
some
floor, yeah.
correlation to that. If we go back before the litigation, when we were doing this, I think Mr. Bass was, it was $10,000. So this has been a number that has fluctuated continually through the years. We believe the footprint less, the use is less, and some of the additional monies are going candidly to security, where at the past 3 events, there hasn't been any significant issue whatsoever.
Wait, before you go, where is the footprint less? Still using the whole side of
So,
the other
so
side?
in November, we paid you the rental through this board was $50,000.
Uh-huh.
We used every aspect of CRA property. The
Uh-huh.
footprint of all parking and the event space is all on the east side of 441. There's no use of the space on the west side of 441. It's half the parcel size.
If I can say something?
Go ahead.
Josh, you're saying that this is going to be a smaller event, but when you stood up here and you talked about that the other fair had the circus and how big of an event that was with that circus, and now we're going to have that same circus here, and you're telling us that it's going to be a smaller event.
100%. I can, when Mr. Bass puts together events, the anticipation is how many people is it going to draw. The circus, while a great event, a great component of an event, doesn't house tens of thousands of people. So when I say this is a smaller event, the anticipated attendance is half of what November will be, in terms of how this event is situated, in terms of its capacity, in terms of ticket sales.
But that's not what you said earlier when you talked about the circus being a great event and how many people the circus brought in
Well,
to
at the-
that
at-
other event.
Member Simone, what I was referencing to, and I apologize if I misspoke, but I was talking about the significance of the circus as a component of the Florida State Fair. So obviously at the Florida State Fair, I've been blessed to have been there. There's a spectacle of different events. This was an amazing component of that. The Florida State Fair wasn't centered on this circus component. Does that clear that up?
I understand, but I think you're playing with words, but that's okay. I understand.
Okay, but in terms of the circus, for example, you're not going to service 5,000 people under the big top, for lack of a better term. It's a limited, finite number of people and a limited, finite number of shows. So yes, we believe this event is going to be significantly less attended, especially with the number of rides, the number of food vendors. This is almost half the size as the November event.
While you're there, just play devil's advocate. You're saying to me there will be no parking on the west side of the street, correct? But that parking had really nothing to do with the city because that was paid parking from other people who collected that. So that should have really nothing to do with what the city gets, because I'm not sure Mr. Bass got that money either. Somebody was paid to part and they charged those. That's not the same.
Okay, I understand.
All right, please call the roll on the amendment.
And that's just simply on the difference in.
Between changing it from the 25 to the 50.
Like,
That's fine.
Correct.
Is that okay? Okay, I want to make sure I did it right.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Board Member Serio,
No.
Board Member Simone,
Yes.
Vice Chair Vazano,
No.
Chair Casciano.
No.
So the amendment fails.
You
So you're
truly
back to the
sell out
original.
your city when you play this game.
What?
You do. You're selling out your city. It's the money. First of all, you fronted all the other stuff. Police and fire got paid. You don't charge interest, which is perfectly fine, but the land is being used, the same amount of land, and you just decided it's worth half of it. For what purpose? For what purpose? For all the years that New Urban got paid and the city got screwed, for what purpose would you ask for less with the same amount of land as last time, regardless of what's on it? It's the same amount of land you can't use. Why would that be okay? Remember that when other people want things.
Okay, and now we're gonna have to take a vote on
On the motion,
the motion that was the change, the First Amendment.
correct, to approve the temporary use agreement
Yes.
for the Spring Fling with the revised site plan.
Correct.
With the payment of the balance owed to the city.
Correct. By
No later than March 4th.
March 4th, yes.
And the condition that the city commission approve the animal display as provided for in the city code.
Yes. And
And I'm
And-
going to.
and
you want to speak, you
I'm
want
going
to,
to ask you another question, yeah. As soon as I,
go ahead.
give me a second. I actually went in and out of my mind. I
All right, please call the roll.
Board Member Schwartz,
No.
Board Member Serio,
Yes.
Board Member Simone.
No.
Vice Chair Rosano,
Yes.
Chair Caggiano.
Please don't fail us and have the money paid because you won't be able to open. My vote is yes, and I'm excited about a circus. I've always loved the circus.
Motion passes 3-2.
With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for everybody who came.